we thought that it would be ridiculous to ask you to stand up for the evening, so we thought we'd bring a couple of sofas and make it nice and comfortable for you. I just have loads of questions that I'm going to fire at him. Questions that have come from all over, that people have been asking for a long time on and off. There's questions that John, who is the project leader for People Against Poverty, has suggested that we ask. Are really good, very insightful questions as well. We'll have a break in the middle of the evening just because it will. You'll need a break because he'll need a break because he just English is his third language. Okay, so it's not easy for you to stop, is it? Once you get going. So, if I jump on him at some point just to try and shut him up, please excuse me. It's because we've got a lot of questions to get through. So, you okay? You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the so warm welcome that I received here. I feel very welcomed here, and I had a great time. So
You're very
thank
welcome.
you. I'm still nervous a little bit.
Yeah, we're both nervous too. We'll support one another. But Attila's had a sleepover at Andy's house for the past couple of nights. So it's really nice. They've been playing games late into the night. I'm sure. But you will notice, the eagle-eyed amongst you, that they both have the same shirt on today. Now, I want to know, who was it that suggested that to the other one this morning? I said, what are you wearing today? I'm wearing this. What are you doing?
Nothing like that.
That must be Andy then, yeah? Nothing like that, we're told. So anyway, right, enough. Attila, I'm just going to fire some questions at you. I think a good place to start would be for you to just tell us something of how you started working with the gypsy families of Appalachia. How did it all begin? It's not a normal life.
All right.
How did it start?
I have to start a little bit earlier. So I grew up in a Christian family, in a very traditional church, in a other part of the country where I am now. And for us, the mission meant in that time that we visited another church as a youth group, and that's what we called doing mission. So I was in the church since I was a small child, but I never knew personally Jesus. And outside I pretended I am very happy and everything, but inside I looked something more. So when I was 16 years old, I went to a Christian camp where every night it was evangelistic meeting. And one night I realized, that Jesus is calling me. I really felt, that Jesus is speaking to me, and in that night I repented. I confessed my sins. I came in before the Lord and I asked, please forgive me, invited Him in my heart, and something changed in me. I received some joy, some peace, some excitement, what I never had before. In that period of time in my church, there was other young people, it was like 20 of us, who also repented, who also had this experience. So we felt that we need to share this with those who didn't know this, who never felt something like this. So we looked around and we asked, who are the people who never heard the gospel, who never heard about Jesus, who never experienced what we did? So we realized, in that time I lived in a very Christian area, but there were the gypsies who, they didn't have religion, they never went to church. So it was kind of outreach people, not rich people. So 4 young people, we went there. I was 17 at that time. I didn't know, how to preach or anything. So we went to visit families, and we shared that we met Jesus. Something happened with my life, with our life. We feel free, forgiven, and you can have the same. And as we visited people there, neighbors started to come in, and we went almost every day. They said, please come back next day. So we went almost every night from 6 o'clock until midnight. We sing, we prayed, we had a great time. So in that time, one day I said to them, why you are not coming to a Hungarian church with us? So I remember the first time it was like 60 gypsies showed up in a Hungarian church. Not everybody was happy about it. So, but doing that, I felt very blessed. And actually that's how God called me to be a church planter, a missionary, a minister. I never wanted to be a pastor or a missionary. Actually, honestly, I didn't like pastors or anything at that time.
I couldn't get it out of that laughing.
So then I realized after fighting with this idea that I need to go to seminary. In the seminary, it was 4 years of study. The biggest thing what I understand that I don't need to go back to a big church, but I need to move to an area that is unreached and plant churches. So when I was ending my years of study in Regin, where I'm staying now, there was a very tiny little church. It was 20 members, mostly old people. They never had a pastor before. Somebody came every month, one time, or every 2 months to give them Lord's Supper. And they said, can you please come and lead us to do mission? Can you come and lead us to do church planting? They said, we cannot offer you a salary or a place to stay, but can you please come and join us? So I understand this is from God, and then I moved there. So how I started to work in Apollina, it's when I moved there, because having this very intense experience in the other part of the country with the gypsies, I asked the church, is there any gypsies in this area? Because this is a Hungarian church. And they said, actually, the highest percent of the gypsies is living in this area. So it's next to every village is like 1,000, 2,000 gypsies, and in Apollina, 3,000 gypsies. But they also said, that they are very dangerous, and we should not do anything with it, as a tiny little church. And I said, let's pray about that, and if God says that we should start something, then we do. So after 6 months, they said, we really pray, we really support you with our prayers and encouragement, but we cannot go with you, but you can go and start the church. So the interesting thing how I started that, because in that time I had some experience with the gypsy, but I didn't know too much. So I was like, I didn't know any one of them, and I was like, went to the mayor office, rented a place like a cultural hall. Then I made some little invitation card. I didn't know that gypsy cannot read and write, so I went out to the street and started to give away. I said, please come to a Christian musical event in a cultural hall. They told they are receiving something, so a lot of people came to receive that card. So everybody find out that there is something in a cultural hall. So in the first night, it was a Saturday night, I think, it was like 100 people showed up, I was so surprised, and having a very traditional church background, I said, now let's start the worship, So I started to sing with my guitar. They started to dance, but not a Christian way, it's like, it's gypsy dancing is a little bit erotic dancing. So I said,
like Christian dancing then.
So I said, stop, we are not here for this, So it wasn't a big success. I said, come back next week, They came back after a week, and there is 2 streets in Apollina. They are not getting together very well. So I started to fight in a meeting. I said, stop, come back next week, Next week they stole my speaker as I was talking, and all kind of things. I am seriously like, in the third, after that, everybody wanted a ride to the gypsy community, so it's like 20 people came in the minibus, you know. And the policeman stopped me and asked, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm starting to plant a church." He said, "God bless you, we don't believe your ticket, you have enough trouble, you know." So, yeah, seriously, it was in that time, that area, it's like, those who were there can imagine, it was like, not really white people could go in that area. It was a lot of crime and everything. So, having this kind of meetings for 2 months, the breakthrough came that after 2 months there was a night when I started the meeting asking a question. And my question was, "Is any one of you is a sinner here?" And they said, no, we are not a sinner. And I said, "You know, yesterday you stole a cow from the next," I knew about it. "And this is a sin, so you are a sinner. You need to repent, you need to confess to God." But they became very angry because they asked, "How I know that? Who am I to blame that?" So they left the hall and went to the street and talked to the big men and to the gangs, you know, that, "Look, this young man," I was 25 in that time, you know, single, you know, more tiny than I am now. So
that just came yesterday, quite frankly, from what we've been eating.
Yeah, so they became very, very anxious about. So when I started to come home from the cultural hall, it was a lot of angry people coming toward me. And I was like, they started to yell, "Come here, who you think you are? Come, we will teach you how to preach, what to say. Maybe you want to tell us to the police." So they wanted to beat me up. And in that time, you know, God came, and a man came from the small street. So he found himself between me and them. And he's one of the most dangerous men in Appalina. He was in prison for 17 years, he killed somebody. But after coming out from the prison, he was baptized in a church, and he heard what I want to do there. His daughter was in my meetings. So he liked that idea to start something in that. So he stopped them, and because he was very dangerous, everybody was, you know, and he said, "If anyone is touching this man, I will kill, you know, I will beat you up." So I was like, and it was from God, you know.
So we have a similar thing here with Andy. That's what the church wardens do.
Yeah. So, yeah, and he also said that from now he can come in my house and start the meeting there. So that's how I was able to go into the community, because before that I just walked next to it, you know. And so I went to his house, and first some children started to come, and then I said to the children, "Invite your parents. After the children's meeting, we can have something with the parents." So I was there for 2 years, and for 2 years nobody repented, nobody made a decision, you know. It was very difficult, you know. Several times I said, "I want to give it up," you know, but there was meeting when I was just me and him, like Danish, you know, and nobody asked him, you know. And there was time when it was so many things happening in that 2 years. There was a time when it was a big fight, you know, and he was involved in the fight, and he stick a pitchfork in somebody's head, and nobody wanted to come in his house anymore, you know. So,
Yeah.
so then we did outside. So, and after 2 years, one man repented. That was in 2008. First man, his name was Romeo. And in the same year, there were 7 others. Then we started to rent a neutral place, and people started to come, you know. And 2011, we built a church and building, and now we are doing that, what we are doing. But that's how it all began.
That's how it all began. Right, well, I've got 20 questions here, so if you want to talk home and let them know, it'll be a bit late, that's why it's, Brilliant, brilliant. That's an incredible story. Can you just go back a little bit and give us here in Colchester, the tiny little corner of England, I think, and unless you've been to Romania, we don't understand how gypsies, how you refer to them as gypsies. Gypsies over here is not a great term, but you call them gypsies, so we call them gypsies because you do. Can you try and give us some understanding of why they are a persecuted people? Because to us it just seems, why? Well, it doesn't seem to make sense why they would be persecuted.
Yes, so in Romania there is a big tension between Romanian and gypsies, Hungarian and gypsies. And a lot of people really don't like gypsies. You know, it's a very big tension. And there is a reason why. Why is that? The reason is that because a lot of them, you know, is doing a lot of bad things, like stealing, robbing, fighting, doing all kind of bad things. And of course, you know, there is a Hungarian or Romanian who has the land, working all year long, you know, planting the seeds, you know, working the farm, and the harvest comes, gypsy kind of steal everything, you know. Or we have a children going to the school, the gypsy boy stopping them, asking, what time is it? Taking out the phone or something, grabbing it, beating your children up, you know, and running away. It's not a nice thing, you know, and having so many of that, you know, like if you go to a Romanian prison, it's 90% of the inmates are gypsies. So many of them doing this kind of things. That's why during the years a lot of hatred and tension. So there is a reason. There is a reason why. Of course, the problem is that not all of them is the same, you know, and especially those who are Christians now is totally changed. But anyway, you know, people is looking them still the same like gypsies, you know, and it's sometimes so intense, like when I was renting an apartment, you know, and my neighbors saw that gypsies started to come to visit me. They did meeting in the area and they said, you need to leave this area because we don't want to see gypsies in our thing. Actually, in the meeting, one of the leaders said they are like not even human, they are animals. You know? So of course that's not nice, but it's a big tension like that. So there is a reason, but it's not right.
Absolutely. So what about, bring us up to modern day, try and make us understand how would the gypsy children, for example, be treated if they were to go to a mainstream, normal Romanian school, or they to go into town? How would they be treated by the community and by the other children, for example?
Yeah, it's so when I am working, because it's so many of them, you know, they ended up having just a gypsy school there. So they are not really mixing with other children in the school. But if they are going to a town, you know, everybody can see he's a gypsy, you know, because he has different skin and clothes and everything, you know. So a lot of them is like, you already afraid of them, you know, don't want to even do anything with them. You know, there is a, I don't know how to say this in prejudice, right? Of course, a lot of them is begging, stealing and everything. So several times when I go shopping or something, I see them there and I said, come in, I can buy you some food. But the shop owner says they cannot come in, you know, because they already had that experience of stealing. I think so. Or the other thing, if they go to find a job, you know, when they find out they are from Apalina, especially, because even among the gypsies, different location is in different level. You know, some of them is better, some of them is worse. So if they hear he's from Apalina, then we don't have job, you know, because they are very famous about being violent, they have very bad reputation. So it's very so most of the time, if they want to get a job, working in a Hungarian house or something, they will not say the truth that they are from Appalina. You know, they have to lie, you know, or something. Because even just to hear, I'm from this, you know, they're like, no, thank you.
Okay, so talking of Appalina, can you give us some kind of, try and explain to the people that haven't been there what Appalina is like? Try and describe the place to them.
So Appalina is an area next to the Regging town where the gypsies live. It's about 3,100 gypsies. That was the latest statistics right now. So they are living in a very, very small area. There was a gypsy streets, and the government in the 70s, because it was a flood in Romania, put some other gypsies there. So in a very tiny space, it's hardly can imagine that in so small space, 3,000 gypsies can live. So because they are not having space, there is a house, like one room, one family. The next family will build 3 walls next to that, and then other family. And they are multiplying very, very fast, because there are some who has 9 children, 12 children, 4 children, it depends. So it's a big issue that so many people in a small, and I think that's one of the reasons why they are so stressed, so violent, you know, because especially if you go out in a summer night, you know, it's almost impossible to walk, you know, because there is a dog, there is a horse, there is a cat, there is a lot of children, somebody is making a fire, you know, others is like dancing, you know, drinking. So it's not a nice area. Now, because they don't have space, started to build in top of each other, you know, second level and everything like that. Of course, there are some nice houses, so you don't need to imagine that everybody is very poor, because there are people who is doing some kind of dirty businesses, you know. There are loan sharks who are giving money away for a very high interest. There are gangs who are stealing, robbing, or even working for Hungarian Romanians. If somebody owing them money, they're hiring them, get my money back, you can have half of it. So all kind of things. So some of them has nice place, and now recently a lot of people started to go agriculture or vocational work in Germany, so come back, make their nice little house nicer. So it's a change, but you can imagine many people in a short little area living together. No privacy, you know. If you go to a house, 10 people will come in, you know. Everybody knows everybody.
So can you give us perhaps a couple of examples of people, a couple of examples of families or situations, just to give people an idea of some of when we came back and we told the Vente story, so they understand a little bit about that. But can you just give us some examples of one or two of people that you might give us just a snapshot of Appalina?
Yeah. So the latest people that I helped last year, there was a family who had one room. Maybe I think some of you came with me to visit that house. His name is Michael, and he has 9 children, and living in a room 4 by 4. Actually, the 2 older children is married, living there. So ended up 14 people in one room. They slept in the ground. You know, it's almost impossible even for me to imagine how they can survive, And we are having several families like that. Or like I just find out that this little children is for the Christmas card. He is one of the 7 children. He's living just with mother, father divorced, and now he ended up in a prison. So older sister, who is now 13, taking care of them. Actually, she was the one who was with them all the time, because mother went to the trash can every day to find something to eat, or some metal cans or everything to sell. And they are living in a room like 7 little children. The older is 13 with a mother. All what they hope that they survive. And the issue is, there is not just 1 or 2 families, but there is so many of them, and that makes it so difficult to.
Yeah, we have a picture of the Vente somewhere. Dave in here. He's kind of like, you go and put the coffee on, so we'll put it out in a minute. But many of you will remember that when we had our evening about Romania, we played a film of Vente. It is an incredibly touching story, horrific story of abuse and some of the things that happened to him. I spoke to him when I picked Attila up yesterday, and I just asked how he was. Can you give us an update of Levente, please?
Yeah, so we are building now a room for Levente, because his room where he lived became very useless. He was living in a mud house. And because that was built like 10 years ago, very simple mud house, the rats started to come in, and made ways in the wall and coming out. We started to stop them, but it's almost impossible because it's so many of them. So he ended up sleeping sometimes with a stick in his hand, to beat the rats during the night. And I had an option to renew that house, but it's almost impossible, so we decided we just build 1 room from bricks and insulate it, so that's what we are doing now.
So John is actually building himself the Vente new house, an emergency house to get through winter, because as of yesterday it was -6 there.
Yes.
Yeah, so it just beggars belief, but so that's an update on the Vente. I know lots of people were very touched by his story, so I don't know about you, but I can't imagine having to go to bed with a big piece of wood next to me, ready to hit rats that are going to be eating my feet during the night. It's unbelievable. Right, anyway, let's move on from that. The church, as in the Orthodox Church in Romania. I won't tell people what you said when I asked you what you thought of them at the moment, but can you again explain why, or tell us a little bit about the Orthodox Church in Romania, as opposed to what you would call your church, the Christian church, if you like. So,
yeah, I don't have too much connection with the Orthodox Church, to be honest, but that's the church what the state is supporting. But the gypsies is never goes to an Orthodox church. They are not very church people. They are if they are not a believer, not serious Christian, they just don't go to church. They are very spiritual. They believe in the evils and witchcraft and everything, but not very religious. So actually, what I see that the Orthodox Church is not reaching out the gypsies. They have actually no connection. They have nothing to do with the gypsies. So that's why.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's hard to say why, but my opinion is, that it's very rare to find serious Christians in Orthodox churches, like who is really a believer and following God and has a passion to live out his faith. That's my personal opinion.
Okay. Yeah. When I asked Attila, what do you think of the Orthodox Church in Romania, we were driving, and he just simply said, they need to repent. Okay, we'll leave it there. So, you answered that very tactically. Well done. Very good. So, right, moving on. Coming back to our shoeboxes. Obviously, these are going to arrive in Aquilina. Wizz Air don't quite know that his hand luggage tomorrow. But anyway, no. The shoeboxes will be arriving in Aquilina. Can you give us some degree of understanding what Christmas would be like, a typical Christmas for children in Aquilina at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm really, really overwhelmed and excited, and I think this is a very big miracle what you're doing for us, that those children can receive a shoebox. So for them, Christmas is the only time when they are receiving a gift, you know. So there was some years when I couldn't give it because I couldn't receive, you know. So it was so sad seeing them, you know, because they are kind of waited it, you know, because they feel, you know, Christmas will come, and because as we started, I used to give them. In that time, I received that from Samaritan person, but they have a strategy. They say they give one time for one place, you know. They will say if that's already was given there, they go to a new place all the time. So that is very difficult for me to get. So starting in September, you know, we have our weekly children meeting, and more children started to come, ending up in before Christmas having in our regular children meeting like 300 kids and everything. So we prepare for them, like singing, we give out poems, everybody learns some poems, and the Christmas celebration for them is like they come to the church, they singing, they are doing the poems and receiving a gift, and that's so special for them, you know. They are so excited about them, and I already see, you know, what joy there will be when they receive these Christmas packages, you know.
Wonderful. Okay. Right, moving along. This is a bit of a tricky question because I know, because I've spoken to you and obviously been to Romania, that your family, as in your extended family, not your wife obviously, but your extended family and your friends think that perhaps you're a bit crazy to do the job that you do.
Yes.
No, genuinely, that you're wasting your life doing what you're doing. How do you, that must hurt you, that must upset you. How do you answer that? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I think that's the saddest thing for me, you know. I understand if not Christian people don't like the gypsies, and I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand. But what I don't understand when I see Christian people don't like the gypsies, and when I see churches who don't believe that they can change. So even in my family, I have people who will say they will never change. They will always be the same. And what you are doing, you know, you should have a better job, you and your wife, and don't waste your life. So, and the other sad thing is just being honest tonight. It's even some pastors think like that. You know, when we have a pastors meeting asking, oh, how is your church? How missions going? I say, oh, I'm so excited. We have 5 new believers. Yes, it's the gypsies. Yes, you know. So it's so heartbreaking. You know, like I had like when I had my wedding. You know, it was 9 years ago. I already worked in La Palina, so I invited 50 gypsies to my wedding, you know. Yeah, that was amazing. They put all the food in their bag, bring it home.
What sort of dancing were they doing? Was it Christian dancing or?
They didn't dance in my wedding. So, but the sad thing was like, before my wedding, you know, it was a church leader from my home area. I said, hey, I hope you're not inviting the gypsies to your wedding because I want to feel good, you know, here. So I said, you know what? I'm with them every day, you know. If you don't feel good, you should not come. But the gypsies will be here, and we have a great time, you know. So it's that's very sad, and you know, I just don't believe what they think, you know. I think they need to repent from this way of thinking, you know, because in God's eyes, you know, and actually I realizing more and more living them, there is no difference, you know, between Gypsies, Hungarian, we are all the same, you know, inside. They, of course, they have some cultural thing, or they are more emotional, or, you know, but that's just the detail. We are all the same, you know, so I don't believe them, and I see every day that what they are thinking is not true, because God is changing them. And I have several people who is so much changed, you know. They have a totally new life, totally new way of thinking. Everything changed because they became Christian.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. That's a pretty good answer, isn't it? Yeah, that's brilliant. So how are you viewed by non-churched gypsies? Because obviously you have good relationships with the gypsies who you've got to know, who come to the church, but what about the gypsies that are non-church, that are non-Christian, if you want to call, however you want to call them?
Yeah, in that area, first as I told, you know, in the first 2 years, you know, I was suspicious for them, and they didn't know what this guy wants here, you know. So I think that's why it takes so much time until somebody repented. But in those 2 years, I had a lot of connection with them. I went to their house, I went them to the doctor, then I ended up preaching in the prison because they had so much relatives in it. And I just shared Andy this morning that God used a small thing in a big way. Like I had a camera, you know, and I made pictures, and then I printed out for them for free. Man, I became famous with my camera, you know, because everybody wanted a picture. So if there was a birthday party or anything, they invited me, can you come, please make some pictures? So even the gangs, you know, when they had party, the picture, they knew I'm a pastor, a Christian, so they respected me. They said, they stopped the music, drinking, everything until I was there. Sometimes I asked them, can I pray for you? You know, I said, yeah. So when I stepped out, you know, music, dancing, drinking, everything. So, and it takes time, but now I really feel accepted and respected. Yeah, outside.
The gang member has, you know, the gang leader, he's your friend, yeah?
Yeah, we play football.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about that. We had a game of football against the Gypsies, and it wasn't until after that Attila chose to tell us that we were playing against a gang. So, a few of my tackles would not have been quite as fast. But we survived, so it was okay. But yeah, thanks for that. But, you know, so yeah, and it's a bit strange because we thought we won that game, and he reckons that it was a draw because, you know, but if we'd have known it was the gang, we'd have just conceded. So yeah, but you know, they're genuinely lovely people in terms of you speak to them, you approach them. Football, for example, is a great leveller. Sport is a fantastic leveller. All we need to do is just have a game of football with them. You know, when you see the kids, the lad, I took that picture of the lad on front of the flyer, and all he wanted was just fascinated by the camera, just fascinated by the smallest things. So I think I agree that they're just people. We're all the same. Yeah, it's the same. I think that's probably a good time to have a break. You can have a glass of water now if you like. Where were we up to? Right, okay, we'll start with a nice hard one. Okay. As Attila, as who you are, as a non-Roman gypsy, have you ever felt your life to be endangered throughout the course of your work?
Yes. You know, as I told you know several times, they are very aggressive, or they are losing their temper. You know, when something's happened that they don't really like, and that's the main problem, that they don't think about the consequences. So it's a, you know, a lot of time that's how it's happened, and ending doing bad things. And it happened several times with me, you know, like I never was beaten up, you know, or something. They pushed me, you know, or threaten me, but not really happened. And the hardest was this summer when it happened in the church. It was some people there who there was a testimony and they didn't like it, that why that man talked so long and so loudly. So he stood up and he was starting to yell in front of the church, and of course I needed to stand up and said what he said, it was okay and everything. Then he started on me and they said, you have your favorite people, that's why you are protecting him, and actually they stayed covered and started to push me, but nothing happened, but it's hurting me very much, Then he said, we will show that we are the powerful people here. So next meeting he brought his relatives, still in the church, finding something to attach, Or a few years ago I had a case when somebody wanted to be baptized, and because she was not ready for that, I said, we should do it later, she didn't have her life, but her husband became so angry, he said, because you rejected my wife, I will come to that service and put gasoline in the baptistry and burn you out, and but yeah, and he said, I wait you here in the corner, and that was Friday, so nothing happened, Monday he called me, said, and he talked very ugly with me about my mother and everything, Monday he called me, can you help me please? I said, I went there, I said, yeah. I went there, he stood in my car, I said, we need to go to the hospital. I said, first you need to say me something, I said, I was angry, forgive me, So, yeah, God is protecting me all the time, and even if we had, even those words sometimes is not easy to hear, especially this last time in front of the church. That was very difficult to cope with.
So how do you cope with it? Personally, emotionally, having invested however many years of your life in this place, how do you cope with that emotionally? Because I'm not sure that we would know how to do it.
I was. So when somebody from outside is doing that, not Christian, I just say, he is not walking with the Lord, or he is angry and everything. So it's easier. The hardest was because this man who did this, he's not walking with the Lord, but he was in the church so many years. So it was very hard to handle, So when it's ended, it was like an hour of arguing, fighting, Then I said, he went home and I pretended I'm strong, So I said to the congregation, let's pray for him, God forgive him. So I went home and I started to cry, And I was like, I was very close to give it up, I said, we cannot do this, it was so hurting. Then actually what was really much, I remember in that time you came, your team, and Andy was in that team, and we prayed together. And that's helped me a lot, to have somebody who I shared this, because I don't share it to my wife, because she will be very concerned about me and everything. So I shared with Andy, we prayed. But I still struggled. I said, those men sitting there, it was so hard to preach, so hard, I was like, and how I set free, after months, almost a month, few weeks, there was a service where somebody came to speak. And I said to him, it was the end of the mission week, and I said, just keep it short, we were very tired. But he said, God telling me to talk about forgiveness. And he said, if we don't forgive for those who hurting us, we will feel this weight and burden, and we will be unhappy. And I just felt God is talking to me, because they was saying bad things about me, and I couldn't forgive. So I stood up in the meeting, they were there. I went to them and I said, look, I forgive you. What you said, it was not right, but I forgive you. And when you repent, you will ask forgiveness. And they started to cry, and they said, please forgive us. So then I feel, released. So it was like that. But yeah, it's sometimes difficult to do this.
Absolutely. So what do you need prayer for personally? How can we, hundreds of miles away, pray for you? And what do you need in terms of prayer, in terms of support? How can we help from a prayer perspective? We can't unfortunately be there all the time. We come across for a few weeks a year and do what we can do. But actually, you're there, at the cliff face every single day. How can we support you? I don't know how to word it any better than that. I feel inadequate asking almost, but.
So I think the prayer is the biggest support that I need. To know that there are people who are praying for me and for us daily. That's a very big encouragement. And even if you're coming for a week, too, that's encouraging. To see that I'm not alone in this. And seeing people coming and help me. So that I really appreciate that. For my spiritual life, I want you to pray for more power, being more filled with the Holy Spirit, and for wisdom. That's for me personally. Sometimes I feel very weak, and especially when I'm facing difficult things like attack, or I just share with the staff that several times I met several times people who are possessed with demons or this kind of things is very difficult, so to have more power, more wisdom.
So how did you deal with that? I mean, that's demon possession is not something that we have a great deal of here at St John's, I have to say. So, I'm genuinely asking, how do you deal with, where do you start with something like that? It's a genuine question. I mean,
Yeah, I had several issues like that. So I have people who came to the church because they had no rest, and there is so the first thing what I say to them, they need to repent, they need to invite Jesus in their heart, and then they can be free from this. But I had a case 2 years ago when it was not so easy, so actually we prayed with one of my friends. It was we were in the camp for 2 nights, 10 hours, with a girl who was really, she was not a gypsy, she was a Hungarian, but she studied this, how to call the demons, everything. Occult, very occult. So I never had that experience before. It was like, the demons started to talk with me, like, they said, in Jesus' name, prayed, and said, oh, I know Jesus, I was there in the garden and he prayed, and I was so scared, I was like, never had that experience. So that's encouraged me to go to a journey and have more of the power of the Holy Spirit and everything like that. But I'm learning, I ask Andy's help because he's more ahead of this experience of the feeling filled with the Holy Spirit and how the gifts of the Holy Spirit works, So I already asked his help to help me in this journey about this, and other people. I'm openly talking about this, it's not.
Okay, well, you lead.
And the other prayer, that's for me personally. Of course, for the ministry, I have a lot of prayer requests. Big thing is to have more workers, more people who is involved, we have people in the teaching, in the orphanage, but with the spiritual work, because, this is just one of the church, what we are talking about, Appalina. I have 5 others, so altogether 6 churches what I am planting now, and I am preaching too much, like 10 times a week, and I know that I cannot do a good job, because I'm preaching every night, Sunday 4 times, but I go when it's emergency, like, oh, it's a problem around there, but I should not do this. I should be more seeing where we need to go, not just resolving, this is the problem, I need to go there and prove that. So I don't really, I'm not proud of it, what I'm doing, being so busy or...
Right, so I think you've got a lot to be proud of yourself, but anyway. So you lead 6 churches, correct?
Yes.
You lead kindergarten, an after-school club, a mentoring program, all sorts of other things. Realistically, how do you stop burning out? How are you going to continue doing that?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I felt very, very strong, young and everything, but now I really feel I need to make a change. And the change can come if I have more workers to come next to me. And right now what I'm doing is I started to have one day off when I don't have meetings. It's Friday, so I have a family day, so that helps a lot when I can keep it. So that's what I did, but I need to work on that.
Okay, fair enough. So what difference realistically do 28 English people coming over, yielding hammers and saws and bits of wood and these sorts of things, and trying to make a bit of a difference? Realistically, what difference does it make? How does it actually further your mission, if you like? What difference do we make? Is it worth it?
It is worth it.
Right. Why?
So the first...
I'm really glad you said that.
the first thing, as I told, that's personally for me, it's a very big encouragement. Like having people who is not hate the gypsies, who is interested to invest, believing in this, that's personally very big. But the other also very important things, like what we are doing it's impossible without help. We don't have any money, to build anything, We don't have money to sustain the after-school kindergarten. So the gypsy churches, they don't even pay much. I don't have a salary from them, So I had people who donate to my salary. So without people and churches like that who are willing to be involved financially and giving time, to be encouragement and everything, it will be impossible to do anything for us. So I'm so thankful for people like you who are really come and make sacrifice for this.
You've heard it here first, people. Seriously, you've heard it from the horse's mouth now. So we need to continue doing this. If this is something that we believe in, this man's doing God's work. He really is. He's remarkable. We need to continue this. We can't just walk away from it. But what do the gypsies themselves think of us? These Jamie with his tops, top hanging off, and stupid hats that people wander around in, and the pasty white English fools. What do they say? What do they think? What's their view of us?
So,
be kind. If you want to lift back to Luton Airport tomorrow, okay.
Yeah. So in the trip, we are doing those home visits, when some of you will go to the gypsy's house and everything. Honestly, they feel very privileged. I already see, I see several times, they're like, oh, let's buy some drink for them or anything, even if they can afford, because they don't experience this, that white man, is coming to his house, it's very respected, very respected. And of course, sometimes, they don't really know what you are involved in, but I share in the church, and all knows about the project, what we are doing, like orphanage and farming, and they are exciting, and, they cannot do anything, and it will be their children who will be there. So they really thankful and really appreciate that. The other thing is, I just to be very kind, not honest, not kind, but It's like,
Kind or honest, I don't know.
it's like, you know, sometimes I tell people don't to make pictures in the street, you know. Some people, again especially, don't like to take a picture in the street, you know, when they are, because for some reason they feel this not comfortable with it, you know. Yeah. But in the house, you know, you feel that, you know, they are really welcoming, really appreciating, especially if you're praying for them, you know, and you know, trying to help. They are really, really thankful for that. So it's not a, yeah.
There's nothing worse than someone wandering with a camera all the time.
No.
I can't stand it. We'll move quickly along from that, that's all right. So, the orphanage, many people here will have supported our efforts to raise money for the orphanage to build the barn outside and the incredible work that it's going. Can you give us an update? When's it going to be finished? We're all anxious and we're all eager and we're all excited. When's it going to be finished? What are the plans? Where are we up to?
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I want to know that. But we are making very good steps. You know, finishing the orphanage. So we are, you know, under the roof, windows, doors in, and this year we made a big step doing all the wiring things like hot water, cold water, electricity, alarm, everything is in. So now my gypsies can come and do the plastering, sealing, then insulation, and yeah, I can see the end now, you know, which is because most of the work what is coming, we can do that, you know.
Yeah.
So our plan is to finish next year, this time. Of course, it depends how the money will come there, you know, everything like that.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So maybe this time next year, I'm aware that we have 2 trips going out round about this time next year, so we might even come for the grand opening.
You are more than welcome.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be nice.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, there's going to be a number of children. It's built for 12, but there's going to be more than 12 children that are going to be living there. These children are going to need sponsoring, guys. They're going to need support. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece of land? This is something a bit different, isn't it? The piece of land next door to where the orphanage is for sale, correct? Can you tell us your plan for that land, or your ideal for that land, what you would like to happen and how you would use it?
Yes, so right now we have a piece of land where the orphanage building is, and in the back of that we have 3 polytunnels and a barn. And this year we started to make an experiment how that tomatoes grows and everything, and it's so exciting to see that it's working excellent, you know. But I find out, you know, that if I will have another land that we can grow bigger, so produce more vegetables, I can apply for government help. I have to have in some level to apply for that. I have to produce 2.5 tons of vegetables from the same kind of vegetables. So if we double what we have now, you know, I can apply for subsidy, and which is a big money, like 3,000 euro, which really helps me to sustain the orphanage and the more.
So that money will be used directly to care for the orphans?
Yes.
And the cost of that piece of land?
It's 17,000 euro.
17,000 euros for a strip of land of around about, from memory, it's probably 3 or 4 acres. So it's a substantial piece of land for 17,000 euros that could be the difference between this project surviving and thriving, because it's really that's the difference, that's the opportunity. So we need to be praying that can happen in some way, yeah?
Yeah, if God's willing, it will happen.
God's willing, it will happen. Amen to that. Amen. So you've been in Appalina now for 10 years, or 12 years you said, correct?
Yeah.
But you've been actually 10 years of success.
Yes.
Yeah? And it's growing all the time. How over that time has the word mission changed to you? Has your mission, your initial mission 12 years ago. Is it different now? Is it the same? What does that word mean to you now?
Yeah, it's yeah. When I went there, you know, my idea to do mission, it was like mostly preaching, singing, praying with people, and that was my idea. That's all what I need to do, you know. But I realized, you know, that there is much more. One, how to make connection and building that relationship with people, and how I can be involved in their daily life and in their daily struggle. And if I am not reaching them there, you know, there will be no success. So mission is much more than just preaching and praying with them. For me, you know, because when he's starving, you know, or when he's dying because don't have medicine, I cannot preach them, but I need to help them, you know, especially in emergencies, you know. So my view of mission is became that mission is more complex, you know, and it's really going together, this kind of preaching, praying, and caring about people, you know, which is needs to work well together.
Okay, so what is the future for Attila and Adele and your children? Where do you see yourself maybe in 10 years' time, 20 years' time?
Yeah, it's you know, in our country, a lot of pastor is moving several times. I prayed when I started this, when I moved here, to God to allow me to spend my life here. You know, I don't plan to move anywhere, and there was churches who were trying to invite me to be their pastor, but I see myself investing my life there, and I want to spend my life doing that. I'm the first pastor in that area, and doing this, and I really think that if I'm not thinking long term, you know, then it's not worth it, all the investment and all the effort. And even if I'm not very patient, you know, I want to see results very quickly and make things happen. You know, God is doing things on time, you know, and I really believe the real change will come in next generation, you know, especially doing this education, training, you know, children work, you know, pushing them to school. You know, I think the real change will come, and I really want to be there.
So why is it so important that children, that the next generation, that the cycle is broken? Just explain, just tell us a little bit about why you think, because I know education is such an important part of what you do.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because, you know, all this poverty, what is there, and all what I see, you know, is the mainly because those people cannot read and write, they never went to school, they are not very smart and everything, and the problem is that they want to do the same with their children. And helping them occasionally, giving them food or anything, that's not resolving the problem. So I think the best thing for them to go to school, finish at least high school or get some skills, jobs, and be hired, you know, and then the real change will come. That's how they can come out from poverty, you know. So that's the only thing what I see now, how we can break this circle of poverty, you know, that be in the school, because those who are finished school, or there are two now who finish university, you know, they really can get jobs, they have a different life, and they can move out from that area, you know, having a job and having a much better life. Yeah. So that's why it's very important for me to push this side of education.
Wonderful. Well, I could go on all night. I really could go on all night, but I'm really conscious questions. So I'd like to do a little bit of a Q&A, if you like. It's a bit like question time. I'll be David Dingleby, you could be all the MPs. You know what I'm talking about there, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm also really, really conscious that we should not let this man leave here tonight without praying for him in a big way. So Andy's a man for that. I want to go and sit down with this. I'll come back in a bit, but Andy, over to you again. First year, we took 14 guys out to do some building work. That was last year. This year we took 28. Next year we have, as of tonight, I believe 38 people signed up. That's wonderful. To go on 3 trips next year. There are still a few spaces left, and we would love to just, the more we can take, the more work we can get done. The more work we can get done, the bigger difference we can make. If you'd like to come in, and don't get me wrong, this is not I'm not saying that you have to come to Romania to be involved in this. You guys here tonight are living proof of that you don't. I'd love to take it all, but you know, what can I promise you from a trip to Romania? Probably a load of meat. There's a lot of meat. You'll eat a lot of meat, so that's pretty good. Poor old Ben Fenner got the vegetarian option. It's never been the same since. But we can promise you lots of food. We can promise you a lot of fun. A real lot of fun. I think anyone that's been, any of the guys that have been will say that it was a real fun trip. It was in no way a negative trip. And yes, you will see things that will affect you and that will probably change your life forever, if I'm honest. It certainly has changed mine forever. However, it is nothing negative because actually God's in every part of it. Every part of it. And just by going, you make a real difference. And so I would really encourage you to, if you're in any way interested, to come along. The dates are up there. The May trip, there's a couple of spaces left. The September trip, there's a couple of spaces left. The October trip is in half term and is full with a waiting list. If you can only make half term and you're interested, let me know, because I can always put you on that waiting list. And I'm praying that John will give us some more spaces. But if you're interested, let me know, because we just want to go and bless this guy's socks off, just by supporting him. So yeah, if you're interested, come have a word with me, and we'll do what we can. We've got a few minutes. I'd love for you to have the opportunity to ask some questions. I have not done half as many questions as there are. I don't know what you want to ask or if there's anything you want to say, but the beautiful Andy will wander around, the glamorous assistant with his microphone. If you've got any questions for Attila, you know, he talks brilliantly, he talks so well. If there's anything you'd like to ask him, then now's as good a chance as we've got tonight. So, after that big lead up there. Here we go.
Hello, my name's Martin. You did mention that you know they live in some very poor conditions, but coming into the winter time, I mean we're complaining that it's cold here this evening. Does the winter get very harsh, and is it a particularly difficult time for them throughout the winter?
Yes, this winter is the worst time. It's very difficult for them because even those who are working in occasional jobs, construction, agriculture, everything is stopped, and they are staying home, most of them. So even Sunday arrived the first snow, and it's a very, very difficult time because most of them will not have job. That means having less and less food, and heating is a big issue. So the hardest part is winter. In winter time, when I received some occasional donation, I used to buy potatoes and oil and some canned meat or something, and I set it up a little food bag or something. When it's very, very big emergency, I used to help them with some little food, just to survive. Yeah, but this is the hardest time of the year. Yeah, especially January, February, because now, you know, they've worked and they have still something left, you know, then they, you know, leave it up, you know, and then they will struggle. Yeah, very difficult. And it can be very, very cold. Snow, it can be minus 10, 20 sometimes. Very cold.
Margaret.
This is really a question for Nick. Can you update us on the group that are going to distribute shoeboxes?
An update in what terms? Sorry, Margaret.
How many are going and who is going?
Right, okay, yeah, definitely. So there are 6 people that are going to Appalina on the 15th of December. I believe that they're flying on the Friday. They will be distributing the boxes on Saturday, or I'm not sure they'll get through them all, but they will be distributing as many boxes as they can on the Saturday. Attila has also agreed to take them to give them a tour, to meet a couple of families, and so they actually go to people's homes as well. So that will, trust me, that will be worth it alone. But yeah, so they will personally hand out boxes. They'll be personally actually meeting the children and spending time with them. I believe most of them, ironically, apart from Nikki, who's leading it, are here tonight. If you're here, can you put your hand up or stand up? Well, yeah, put your hand up. It's easy, isn't it? I don't want to embarrass you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So actually, all 5 of them are here tonight. So yeah, David and Celia are here. Julia Longman is over there. Hannah I can see at the back, and Jenny I can see at the back as well. And Nikki Sarah is leading the trip. So they'll be going personally handing out these 680 plus shoe boxes. So that's where we're at with the December trip. So yeah, so that's the first one for next year. So.
In a project like this, sustainability is very important. Do you have a vision after the children received education and are moving out there? Do you have a vision or plan, like industry, like they can work, so build money earning plan for them?
So I think the question is one after when the children grow up, that they go through the education programme, they learn to read and write, they get jobs. I think the question, correct me if I'm wrong, is that perhaps do you have any plans to help them get work as adults?
Yeah, so even now I am doing that. Like I am going with them to factories and starting to tell nice things about them, especially those who are Christian churchmen, where like, oh, we can trust him and everything like that. But when they will have education, it will be much easier for them, you know, because they can apply for a job, you know, and they can have much more opportunity. And the other thing is, you know, a lot of people is leaving the country now, so we are lack of workers especially in physical construction, you know, manual work. So they will have more and more chance if they can do the job. You know? So that will be not a problem for them to find jobs.
Excellent. So the orphanage, when the orphans grow, and obviously they grow up, what plans do you have after that point? Obviously, that when they grow, the next orphans will come, correct? And it's a plan to continue this?
Yes.
To continue selling crops and to build a bigger business, yeah?
Yeah. So your question is after the children grows up, what happens?
Well, yeah, I think what the lady was asking is it's all very well looking after the children, but actually when they become adults, And do they face the same prejudice that you know, what is education worth it? I think is probably the short question.
Yes. So when they will come out, you know, from that, and they will stay in the orphanage, having good school, and some of them will even go to university, which you know, that will be a totally different life for them, you know, totally different life. So after they grow up, you know, they can go to study and they start their own life, you know, having a job, marrying, you know, renting something, starting their life for like anybody else, you know. Yeah. And my other joy doing this, you know, is that they will grow up in a church, you know, they will become Christian, they will repent, they will serve the Lord. So they will be, you know, not just orphans who are having a better life, but Christians who will serve the Lord and who will have eternal life. So,
wonderful. Can you give us just a little, talking about growing up, here we would say that an adult is 18 technically in the UK. In Appalina, at what age? I know it's a lot earlier, isn't it? Can you give us an idea of the ages of people who are growing up?
yeah, it's legally, even in our countries, 18 is growing up, but that's the other problem with what we are facing, that they are marrying very early. You know, it's 13, 14, the girls are getting not married, but you know, moving together, having the first baby, 14, 15 years, which is very, very bad, very bad. They are not ready for that. After a few years, you know, they will separate because they never get legally married. So that's why when somebody is repenting, making a decision to follow Christ, before they be baptized, first they legally married, you know, and everything, because that's part of that. So I really want to change that, you know, and I encourage them, don't go get married very early and wait, you know, but you know, they are like, it's hard for them to imagine, you know, like I'm in love, you know, why I should not stay with him or her and sleeping together, having the baby. And actually that's one of the reasons how they are think they will keep their husband if they have a baby with them, you know. So that's like, oh, I have a baby, and he will surely not leave me, because you know the situation for women there is very, you know, they need to have a man to get food, you know, because the man is who is providing. So that's why a lot of the times, you know, ladies can be treated very badly, and they are just need to support that to have food, you know. So it's a very complicated thing, you know. It's everything is, yeah.
We've got time for one last question or a couple of questions. There you go.
Marcus.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned in the last 12 years of ministry in Appalina?
Good question.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing what I learned is that what is God's will, you know, nobody can stop it. And what God starts, what God wants to do, you know, He will raise up sponsors. He will make a way, and we should be very encouraged that God can use anyone, you know. Just what we need to have, it's a will that, Lord, here I am, use me. And you know, I remember, like, I was lost, you know. I went out as a young man, 25 years old, know nothing, full with fear and everything. And if God could use me, He can use everyone. So we should trust the Lord and start to do, not just in Romania, everywhere we are, you know. even here with the neighbor in the school, serve the Lord, and God will work in a mighty way. In a mighty way, nothing can stop him. No, we are in a team which is the winning team. And yeah, even if sometimes I'm not really seeing this, but I'm learning to trust God. I'm learning to trust God in this, which just helps me a lot in my spiritual journey, to having this experience. Yeah, and the other thing,
No, you carry on, please.
Carry on. Like the other thing, what I really tell people, like, I don't know here, but everyone is saying who are a Christian that I want more experience with God, more miracles, more power and everything. And I realized that we are having that if we are involved in work, in mission. Because in Matthew 28, when Jesus said, all authority in heaven and earth is given to me, and he will use it, he said when he's saying the big command, go, go. And we are experiencing in this kind of circumstances so many interesting experience, and even if I mostly talked tonight about challenges and hardness, there is a big joy, it's not a sacrifice to serve the Lord. It's not even if we have hardness, sometimes sleepless night, but it's so much joy over there, so much nice experience. So sometimes I overwhelm, and when you see somebody repenting, changing, you forget every hardness, everything, and you are filled with joy. So I encourage everyone to be involved, not just in Romania, here, everywhere, because I know that even here the fields are white, and the workers are the few. So we should go and serve our Lord, because it's worth it every minute of it.